Hey guys, so I'm gonna do a breakdown of Split, considering that's one of the most well-known songs. I thought it would be appropriate to show you guys the inner workings of this project. So, so if you listen to the song, you might notice that it's quite distorted, perhaps overdone. This is because I have not this one. I have Maximus on the master. You can see I added quite a bit of saturation and set the ceiling quite low so that I essentially brick wall it, and it adds like this sort of like crunchy sound to the whole thing, and you can hear it especially on the drums. I'll show what it sounds like a little later on, but here's what I mean. So this is what I'm talking about. The saturation kind of like squishes all the peaks, so I get this really nice distortion, and well, again, I just brick walled that whole thing. That's just kind of like the vibe of the song going, just like a really heavy sound. I just go ham on the distortion. It's that kind of thing. So yeah, that's where most of the distortion comes from, though there is more underneath, which I'll show in a bit. So, intro. There's just some samples, so like a little bit of like background noise, so this final crackle. A little bit of fuzziness, I believe, caused by the distortion. So this riser sound that I have, something I actually made myself. So this is sort of FM synth that's just, well, yeah, it's all sine waves just modulating into each other. It has this weird bell-like tone to it. All I really have is just this LFO that increases, as time goes on. Not really sure what this ambience is, but yeah, that's just a riser. It's just this simple FM thing, and I just increase LFO as it goes on. Then, when this starts, I have this impact I use pretty often in the track. It's a Foley type of thing. Above it is this percussion loop that I thought was pretty neat. So like a nice gritty sound. And then here, the ARP. It's from a Citrus preset that, well, is supposed to sound like a 303, so this one. So when I made this track, I felt this track needed something. It needed a distorted acid riff because those are pretty cool. So what I did was I used Blood Overdrive to distort it. Without it, it's just this pretty like acid-like sound. But with the overdrive, it like adds like harmonics to those like really like screechy resonance, and it makes this nice like almost atonal sounding art, because I found that no matter what key I press. Wait, hold on. Yeah, like you can't really hear the note that much as like whatever key you press. So of course I still set it in key anyways. So that's what that really acidy ARP sound is. Here is the pad. Some very slow moving chords to add a bit of background. It's just another Citrus preset. Nice and ethereal. I don't know, a nice contrast to all the harsh sounds. And again, just a nice background. So after about 8 measures, I have this gate going on to transition to the drums. And here I have these drums. It's one of those FL default drums, though I did compress it quite a bit. Yeah, I use a Rough Rider to just like, I could have used any other compressor, but I just used Rough Rider to like put a lot of compression on this particular kick, some overdrive, bring out some harmonics, so it's nice. A good touch of distortion to it. So yeah, it hits pretty hard. The hi-hats. So one is just like a normal sounding hi-hat. The other has like a really noisy texture to it, and also like pan a bit to the right, just to add a bit of percussion. So together I get this nice drum beat. For these glitches here, so a common thing I do with my tracks is I resample raw data to get these really harsh glitchy sounds, and I play them back. As the file name might indicate, it's raw data of the .exe file of MS Paint. It's actually surprisingly melodic for raw data, but yeah, it's just one of these tricks I use often. Each hit is like pan slightly to like give some space. Strings here at the end of the intro sort of like transition into the breakdown. I use a Salentino Orchestra for the strings, which is surprisingly good for a free sampler. So if you're looking for an orchestral sampler, might want to take a look at that. That's it for the intro. So sometime before the drop hits, I have this impact. And might notice this funny little glassy tapping sound right before after the intro. This was like something interesting I came up with. So this sound is just, well, this glitchy sound without effects. So yeah, it's a box sound, but I stretch it so that it's lower and it sounds like really growly and grumbly. Thought that was pretty neat, but what I did is I put a phaser on top of it, and I automated the number of comb filters that are present in the phaser. And I noticed that as I increase the number of comb filters, there's a sort of artifact sound that produces this tapping sound. So I automated this. So yeah, just fun things you can find while playing with phasers. Come over and add a little bit of reverb and yeah. That's the weird phaser thing. I automated the pitch of the strings to kind of build up. Oh, wrong thing. And then this weird distorted thing that comes right before the drop. It's this funny sample I have. So as the file name might imply, it used to be drum breaks. Then I put it through, then I glitched it up, the D-blue glitch. So without all these effects, and, well, long story short, I slapped a ton of distortion onto it. And if you ever want to express anger in your tracks, distortion is a good way to go. And you might notice here I did introduce some panning to like kind of have this like weirdness as the distortion goes on, because like pan things, especially hard pan things, like do feel funny but also very interesting. I think beforehand I actually hard panned the breaks, but I thought, nah, that's too weird, so I turned it down. And here, volume, I put a gate effect right before the drop hits. So that's the breakdown, and now for the drop. I'll have to admit I did not choose the best drums for this track. Like, I could have chosen some better drums, but so you can hear that really nice crunch from the snare. The kick, well, could have been better. Maybe it hits a little too hard, but it does work. Crunch. And I also added this percussion hit on top of the snare to kind of make it stand out, especially with all the crazy bass stuff going on. So what does the drop consist of? I'd say it's partially sampled raw data as a noise bass and a gritty FM bass I made. So what does it sound like without anything? So yes, it's a sub bass like underneath everything. This would be the FM bass. So it has a nice growly texture to it. This is the sampled raw data. Has a lot of like very screechy sounds and noise like textures. I believe this actually had like some discernible pitch to it, so I tuned it to match the key of the song. And then we have a noise bass, so basically white noise and saw waves. If you go deeper, very crunchy. So I make this in Harmor. I mean, honestly, there are better synths to use when making a noise bass, especially since you can't just, there's no noise oscillator in Harmor since it uses harmonics, but I'll show how I made it anyways. I believe this part. Yeah, so the second part is just a waveform between, like, it's a square saw wave. So pretty solid for bass. The first part is a sort of recreation of white noise. Doesn't really sound like it, but with the distortion of that, and it's pretty like harsh atonal sounding, which it pretty much works. So I guess you're wondering how to sort of emulate noise in Harmor. What I did is the timbre looks something like this. So very few low harmonics, but a lot of high ones. So it's going to sound like very harsh. And then use unison to detune the heck out of it, and then set the unison to a full blur so it blurs all together, and then you get this very harsh sound. I also turn up the prism to detune it even more because obviously it's noise, it's not supposed to have any sort of tone. This does take up a bit more CPU than what's desirable, so obviously there are much better synths to use if you want to use white noise in your bass. But that's just how it's done. So there's not much else to it, just distortion on top. And the other basses are essentially the same, just distortion slapped on top of it. And these modulations are just for the FM bass to like kind of like change the texture a bit. So just some modulation right here. You might notice there's some gaps when I play the pattern. The rest of the gaps are filled here with these extra glitch samples I had. So that's really it for the first part of the drop. This part where there's a sort of melody going on with the bass. I mean, it pretty much is a melody. And it just sort of like alternates between this growly FM bass. Let me see if I can disable this for a second. So, the alternation between that and a noise bass. There's not much there. There's a tom fill. And then this part. It's sort of like breakbeat pattern. And yes, that obnoxious snare is a koan sound snare. Because why not? A big annoying snare. And then some like fast 16-note hi-hats. The bass pattern is a lot simpler. Simply alternates between the FM bass and the noise bass, which plays at different octaves. So this first part. So the noise bass sounds alright when you play at this octave. When you play at this octave, basically it's so low that you can't hear like the square saw waveform anymore, and you can just hear the noise, so it sounds really harsh. Like almost as if I just filled that spot with just distorted noise. But that's really all there is to that pattern. Then I low pass out of it, and then this breakdown. There's that like bass like in the background, like slowly fading away. Hi-hats to like keep it going. Glitches, and this glitch sample I made of an unreleased song, so I did sneak in a teaser. Not that, I mean, it is pitched down and all, but yes, I did sneak an unreleased song into here. That's very nice. This part is just a repeat with a slightly different pattern. Really, the only difference with this breakdown is that the filter envelope goes in the opposite direction. It's a lot more, the resonance is a lot more prominent. The first time I did it, I went to the top to like almost 100%, where or you can just like barely hear it and it sounds really muffled. So just a little variation to a breakdown that's otherwise the same. Breakdown here. So this part I rendered it to audio, but it's basically this FM sound I made and increased the reverb as it went on. There's that. This appropriately named pattern is just the kick getting 16th note kick just slowly fading in. What's this? It's this interesting synth I made just for the riser on this part. I mean, it's just made in a 3x oscillator. Clearly, I did put a phaser on it to kind of give it this interesting texture. And then I just slowly fade it in as it rises up in pitch. What else? That's pretty much it. And the drop repeats. There's actually no change from the previous drop. It's literally just the order of the sections are just reversed. So I can just skip that part. And then in the end, just 2 impacts at once. The fuzziness persists because of that distortion I applied on the master. That's it for the track itself, really. Interesting thing to point out is I actually applied parallel distortion. I'm not sure what exactly it's linked to. Interesting. So I forgot to mention this. I applied a second layer of distortion underneath the one on the master. And there's no I don't think there's any particular plugin native to FL that can do this, but of course you can just set it up in Patcher. Basically I have one input just playing the regular audio and the other getting distorted quite a lot, and then I cut out the low frequencies because, as you might know, distorting low frequencies creates a money mess. So I have these two play at the same time and you get crunchiness. Of course you can apply a parallel distortion to like anything. You can get really interesting results. I believe that is it for breakdown and split. So hope you find this interesting, and I might do more breakdowns in the future.